Welcome. I'm Massumeh Farhad, Chief Curator and the Ebrahimi Family Curator for Persian, Arab, and Turkish art at the Freer Gallery of Art and the Arthur M. Sackler Gallery, which together form the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art. I am delighted to welcome you to Transcendence, a Sufi musical festival. The program today is the fourth and final one in our series that I hope will transport you for an hour to another place and another plane, and I think it will. The Sufi Musical Festival is one of many Freer Sackler events over the last year that has explored the intersection of religion and art. These programs have been made possible by a generous grant from the E.G. Lilly Foundation. The Sufi concerts in particular have allowed us to consider how we present religious ideas, expression, and practices that are oral rather than visual. Before we proceed, I would like to thank my colleagues for their tireless work on this series, and it has been tireless. Sana Mirza, Lizzie Stein, Deborah Diamond, Hutomo Wikaksono, Karen Nolan, and Andy Finch. We have a wonderful program for you today that will feature one of the most accomplished Moroccan female singers, Zainab Afailal. We are particularly pleased that Zainab will join us for the Q&A section at the end of the performance and all the way from Morocco. So if you can, please stay to hear from her in person. To tell us a little bit about what we're about to hear, I'm delighted to introduce Scott Kugle, Professor of East Asian and Islamic Studies at Emory University. In addition to his expertise in history, religion, and literature, Scott is also one of the leading experts in North African and South Asian Sufism. Scott?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Marhaba bikum. Welcome to you all. Come with me now to a port city that connects disparate realms, where the lapping of the sea reminds you of Andalucia and the cherished memory of that long-lost homeland. Let's go to Morocco's port city of Tétouan, on the very edge of North Africa. At night, looking out to sea, you can see the lights twinkling in Spain just across the waters. Andalusian refugees settled here after 1492, and they brought their musical traditions with them. From Tetouan, turning south, you can drive about an hour from the coast deep into the Rif Mountains, and you come to one of the most sacred places from where Sufism spread in medieval Morocco. This is the tomb of Sidi Ibn Mashish, who lived in a cave on the top of a mountain that today is robed in cork trees, the trees whose bark makes corks. Ibn Mashish was a Sayyid, a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad through his grandson Hassan. Ibn Mashish's only known disciple, who came to this mountaintop as a young man searching for religious truth and certainty, was named Sheikh Abul Hassan Shadhili. He trained in meditation practices and learned prayers and blessings upon the Prophet from his teacher, and then left to travel, spreading his Sufi teachings of total trust in God, tawakkul ala Allah, from Morocco to Tunisia to Egypt, and eventually all across the world. The Shadhili Sufi order takes its name from him. And though Abul Hassan Shadhili died in Egypt on a journey going to Mecca, most Sufis in Morocco trace their teachings to him. In Morocco, they adapted Andalusian music that had developed in the courts, to the Sufi art of Samâ. Samâ means listening, but it became a technical term for listening to Sufi music in a ritual setting with a devotional intent. It's not listening to any old kind of music. The Samâ indicates music which is designed to get you closer to God. So this is singing Sufi poetry in artful ways that weave in phrases of devotional Zikr meditation. The master of this fusion of music and spirituality was Sidi Muhammad al-Harraq al-Alami, who died around 1845 in the city of Tetouan, the city that I'm imagining that you're traveling with me to right now. The Zawiya, or the Sufi lodge of Sidi Harraq, became a center of this musical heritage, and his followers sang his poems and the poems of earlier Sufis in their ritual called al-Hadra, a chanting meditation involving some bodily movement, invoking the presence of Allah in a communal gathering. Sufis in Morocco found very innovative ways to communicate their Islamic message of ethics, of love, and of union with the divine reality. Central to their success were music and poetry, both in classical Arabic in the form of the qasida, and in local Maghribi dialect, which we could call Darija in Morocco, the local Moroccan way of speaking, which in some ways differs from classical Arabic. And that's in other poetic forms known as Zajal, or the mixed language, muwashah. Muwashah is where you mix classical Arabic with the local dialect. This is a kind of music that is refined in its fluttering melodies. It unites the solo voice with instruments, with choral refrains and ensemble playing. Normally, there would be a large group of people playing a variety of instruments, maybe 10 or 12, and the players sometimes sing the chorus. The presentation today will be a little bit smaller, more intimate kind of ensemble. This musical form came from the court of Cordoba in southern Spain, Andalucia, but it was cleverly adapted to a ritual of worship in which the rhythm imitates the swaying of communal chant and the steadily increasing tempo mimics a catharsis of Zikr meditation. This music delivers to us the Sufi message of longing for union with God and lamenting our existential separation. Andalusian Sufi music places special emphasis on invoking praise and blessings on the Prophet Muhammad. And you should listen for this as the lyrics begin to pour out from the singer. There's a special emphasis on Morocco, on the place of the Prophet Muhammad and the devotion of praising him and calling down blessings upon him from God. In the lyrics that you'll hear, Muhammad is not just a man, Abdullah in Arabic, nor merely is he a messenger of God, Rasulullah. He's also the beloved of God, Habibullah. He's also the embodiment of eternal light, Nurullah. He's the point of love and beauty through which all creation emerged into existence, Ayn al-Wujud. He's the protector of believers, the intercessor on Judgment Day, and the dispenser of divine compassion, Rahmatan lil Alameen. Our vocalist today, Zainab Afailal, is from the port town of Tétouan, the site of the tomb and devotional center of Sidi al-Harraq al-Alami, and home to an important conservatory of Andalusian music, because this is a living tradition, considered to be the kind of classical music of North Africa. She will sing for us 4 pieces, drawing on a range of lyrics and Sufi authors, ancient and modern, famous and somewhat obscure, so that you can appreciate the music better once you enter its rhythm and its flow. I'll give you a little bit of context about the poems and their authors before introducing you to the musical form, the instruments, and the musicians themselves. The first poem is by an unnamed author, but it expresses universal Sufi themes. The poet complains of separation and alienation from God and searches for his own heart, the existential center of his being, in which dwells the divine Lord. The lyrics say, Rabbi ya Rabbi, ma li ghayraka ya mulayya, nashki laka bil hal. Lord, oh my Lord, I have no one but you. I complain to you of my state. The word for state here, hal, represents one's spiritual state. It's a basic Sufi term meaning the condition of one's soul as it transforms from moment to moment. The term heart or qalb is another elemental Sufi term. And the heart is the solution to this bewilderment of constant change and variation. It offers a firm center that if one can find it, keep it pure and clean, then it will reflect God's presence. The second poem is by a very famous poet. It's a qasida in Algerian Arabic, Al-Hurma Ya Rasulullah. The poet Muhammad bin Musayyib was from an Andalusian family that moved to Algeria after the fall of Granada. Bin Musayyib was born in Tlemcen, a city that was a fountainhead of Sufism. That city is where Abu Madian, a great Sufi from Andalucia, settled and died around the year 1200. Abu Madian's tomb is a pilgrimage place, and his teachings and poems formed the foundation for Sheikh Ibn Mashish on the mountaintop in Morocco, and his disciple Sheikh Abul Hassan Shadhili, all across North Africa. Our poet, Ben Masib, lived in Tlemcen in the 18th century, and he's a fascinating character. He started out writing popular satire and social critique. And around 1747, he got into trouble because he wrote poetry criticizing the governor of his city, and the governor ordered him to be executed. Ben Masib asked for an hour's delay so that he could make ablutions, he could wash and pray one last time. The delay was granted. Ben Musayyib quickly washed and prayed and also composed a beautiful poem, an ode in Arabic that began, Ya Ahlallah, ghisu al-malhuf, qabla an tash'al nar al-jawf, kayfa yahni man sakanahu al-khawf, wa in zahama tulabahu lahaquhu. O God's people, rescue one racked with worry, he says. Before a blazing fire burns his gut, now hurry. Who can relax when fears rage around him in fury, when his rivals rush forward to catch his rear? In his execution hour poem, Ben Musayyib appealed to God for help and grace. And when swords were raised to execute him, a messenger came riding from the governor's mansion, ordering his immediate pardon. After that, the poet repented to God and wrote poetry in praise of the Prophet Muhammad alone. Every poem of sarcasm and humor he took and rewrote it in honor of the Prophet with spiritual weight and reverence. Our singer today, Zainab Afailal, is going to present one of his more famous poems, Al-Hurma Ya Rasulullah, Al-Hurma Ya Rasulullah, Al-Hurma Jit Indak Qasid, Al-Hurma Ya Habibullah. Reverence, O Messenger of God, sanctity, O Messenger of God. In fearful awe, this message reaches you, I seek shelter, O beloved of God. Bin Musayyib composed poems, but also set them to music and sang them. And so we can see in his personality this tradition of Sufi authors who are also musicians and composers. His poems mention all of the instruments used in Andalusian music, the oud, that is the Arab lute, the rabab, the Arabic fiddle, the kamanche, the Persian fiddle, which was adopted in Arabic cultures, the reed flute, known as the shababa, the drums, tabul, the tambourine, the tar, and the pipes, the qasbah, in addition to other instruments. Today's performance is going to be a little bit more minimal, as I mentioned. It includes only the oud and the drum, the darbuka. It's a funnel-shaped drum. And this smaller ensemble is actually a really rare treat because you get to hear the artistry of the individual instruments much more clearly, and you'll get to focus on the oral vocal delivery of the poems themselves. The third song is a very rare and special song. It's a song that I had never heard before this performance. It's a contemporary poem by Zainab Afailal's own music teacher, Muhammad Amin Al-Akrami, and he is the director of the Tetouan Music Conservatory. The poem and song was composed in 2018, so it's very, very fresh. The poem captures the spirit of Zikr Meditation, and I've used this term before. Zikr means remembering God. It's a technical term for Sufi techniques of meditation involving chanting the names of God. And this poem that will be sung weaves many of the 99 most beautiful names of God into tender statements of heartfelt faith. Names like Azim, the Great One, or Raqib, the Guarding One, Hakim, the Wise One, Hasib, the Watching One, Ahad, the Unique One, Wahid, the Singular One, Al-Afu, the Gentle One, Al-Ghafur, the Forgiving One. The final song is actually a suite of poems. It demonstrates how different lyrics from different poets are woven together into a longer composition over a steadily increasing tempo. And this is the basic structure for Sufi songs used in the hadra, the ceremony of listening to devotional music as meditation. The suite begins with a very famous poem of Imam Busari from 13th century Egypt. He was a Berber from the Sanhaja tribe, a prominent member of the Shadhili Sufi order, who's buried in Alexandria, the great port city of Egypt. His ode of the mantle, or Qasidat al-Burda, is one of the most famous Sufi poems in the whole world. It came to him in a vision as the Prophet Muhammad appeared to his mind to heal him of a deadly paralysis by placing his cloak over the poet and removing all sickness from him. The poem was then offered to the world as a gesture of thanks to the Prophet Muhammad for this healing act. The poem is often considered sacred and is widely sung across North Africa and beyond, all the way to India and Indonesia, where people know its refrain, even if they know no Arabic at all. Mawlaya salli wa sallim da'iman abadan ala habibika khayri khalqihi kullihimin. O Lord, send your peace and blessings for always and forever upon your beloved, the highest of the whole creation. After this comes a poem by Sidi Bahlul from Tetouan, who was a member of Sidi Harraq al-Alami's Sufi community. It's in the Moroccan dialect, and it's one of the first songs that I learned when I lived in Morocco to study Arabic. One hears it in Sufi gatherings, in popular song competitions, and sometimes in the street, sung by beggars and devotees. It's known as Al-Qasida al-Fiyashiyya. The translation of the central stanza is, I haven't got the force, no strength between my sides. Why feel such remorse when the Maker provides? أنا ماني فيش عش علي مني نقلق من رزق علاش والخالق يرزقني. The poem lauds the virtue of resignation, rida wa taslim, of passing the reins of power back to the God who created you in the womb. It's a very simple and forceful statement of tawakkul, the Sufi virtue of relying only upon God, and thereby emptying your heart of anxieties and cares. Finally, the suite turns to poetry by Sidi Harraq himself, the Sufi from Tétouan, who's the center of this musical tradition that Zainab Afailal is the living exemplar of. With accelerating tempo, the singer offers praise upon the Prophet Muhammad, known as salawat. The poetic lines get interspersed with repetitions of no God but God, the simple devotional chant that's the heart of all Sufi meditation, La ilaha illallah. In ordinary Sufi gatherings, saying La ilaha illallah has an emphasis on beat 2 and 4. So if you can follow me in thinking of 1, 2, 3, 4, La ilaha, it has the emphasis on beat 1 and 3. I correct myself. La ilaha illallah. 1, 2, 3, 4. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. That's a kind of standard rhythm to this basic phrase. But in Moroccan Andalusian singing, oftentimes the beat gets shifted to number 2 and number 4, which gives a more driving rhythm. If you can go follow with me, 1, 2, 3, 4. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, with the emphasis on the 4th beat. And that's a very unusual presentation of that phrase in terms of rhythm for those of you who may have had experience in Sufi devotional chanting or other traditions of Sufi music. Listen for that wonderful rhythmic shift and syncopation that happens at the end of that fourth song, which is a suite of poems. Well, I know you're all anxious to move into listening to the music. Just a brief word about the musical form and the instrumentation. Andalusian exiles brought Andalusian court music, which had developed in Cordoba, down to North Africa, where it underwent greater development. This musical tradition was founded by a legendary figure, a great musician, and a cultural icon of Andalucia named Ziryab. Ziryab himself represents a fusion of cultures, which is very beautiful to contemplate.
Hello everyone! We are so excited to be here with you, and I hope you will enjoy our live session. Let me now introduce what we will present. So the first part will be composed from 10 pieces from the Andalusian music repertory, and the mode's name is Raml al-Maya, and the lyrics is about a Sufi poems. ربي يا ربي ما لي غيرك يا مولاي غيرك يا مولاي نشكي لك بالحال أنت تعلم كل ما خفى من ديوان السرار فضميري مكتوب ما نعرف قلبي وينما مالي بيه درايا مالي بيه درايا في حيرة جواه تايه بين الصد والجفاء
شيطان بلايا لهلاكي عما وجيوش المحنة جافا هدت حصن صواري تركته مهدوم يا خير الأنام حبك سباني حبك سباني عشقك في الدوام عمر جناني عمر جناني مدح النبي فيه فائدة مدح الرسول ما أحلاه ريق الحبيب إذا نزل جوف العالي لأبرى سعد الذي تمسك شبك بيدي ونطق وقال الشفاعة يا رسول الله أن تقوى قهر الشفاعة يا رسول الله من حب في خير الورى من حب في خير الورى محمد طبيب القلوب محمد طبيب القلوب لاح البدر لما سرى لاح البدر لما سرى ويفجي جميع الكروب ويفجي جميع الكروب كم نبقى بعيد يا ترى سلموا على المصطفى سلموا سلم على محمد في مكة الحجر واسعى إلى محمد كما سعى الشجر وانشق يا محمد لأجلك القمر يا سيدنا توحد يا سيدنا توحد في قدره العظيم والله يا محمد في وجهك النعيم والله يا محمد في وجهك النعيم نمدح محمد سيدا أهل السماء والأرض من جاءنا بالشرائع والسنن والفضل والطوف الأرض الباسطة طولها والعاد واقهر بسيف الملال مشركي الأرض واقهر بسيف الملال مشركي الأرض قلبي عاشق في سيد الأبرار والنوم بريء والنوم بريء الدمع من عيني كالأمطار على خدي جري على خدي جري متاعنا كله من الزوار نرمي الجمار نرمي الجمار ونشاهد مقام الهادي الإمام نشاهد مقام الهادي الإمام ونقول يا رسول الله يا خير الأنام عليك السلام عليك السلام يا حبيبنا يا محمد عليك أزكى السلام يا لالان يا لالان يا حبيبنا يا محمد عليك أزكى السلام يا شفيعنا يا محمد عليك أزكى السلام يا لالان يا لالان طاني طانان طاني طانان يا لالان يا لالان أهلا يا لالان أهلا يا لالان يا توالى من إله على عشيعة طول الدوام طاني طاناي طاني طانا يا لالان يا لالان يا لالان يا لالان طاني طاناي يا لالان يا لالان هنانا هنانا هنان ومن تكون برسول لله نصرته إن تلقاه الأسد في الجميع هاجمي ماني أعتصم بك يا خير الورى شرفا الله حافظه من كل منتقم هننا 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 هننا.
So the second piece that we will present is in the same musical mood, that is Raml Maya 2, with a change to another mode that we name Al-Hijaz Al-Kabir. The poem is written by the famous Algerian Ben Said, and this piece is included in the Al-Malhoun of Tetouan repertory.
الحلم يا رسول الله الحلم يا حبيب الله حلم جيت عندك قاصر حلم يا حبيب الله الحلم جيت عندك قاصر يا صاحب الشفاعة المجاد خوفي بزلتي متمرمد يوم الوقوف عند الله يوم الوقوف عند الله عاي عليك يا محمد عرى العبد على مولاه حلمي يا رسول الله الحلم يا حبيب الله الحلم جيت عندك قصاد الحلم يا حبيب الله عالي عليك يا ابن قاسم يا صاحب اللواء والخطر يعني عرف عايلي ندم ما درت باش نلقى الله ما درت باش نلقى الله ما تبت ما قريت
So now, the first piece is from Naubat's Rit al-Hussein, is also a mode of Andalusian music, and the lyrics is written by my professor Muhammad al-Amin al-Akrami. We will play it only with oud, and I will sing the poem. So I want to thank Mr. Amin Plahwan on oud and Mr. Yusuf Shar on percussion. شوي
قلبي بالحضرة ارتوى بذكر العظيم رب الكرام للعالي هو الدواء القادر الحكيم شفي السقام على الأنام هو الأقوى راقب حصيب لا ينام على العرش استوى حي لا يموت محيي العظام ملك مؤبد دائم لا يباد في يوم الزحام إليه الملاذ عفو غفور للمؤمنين سند أحد ما له ولد ولم يولد هو الله الواحد الصمد ماجد أمجاد نور مخلد دايم للأبد هو العادل في يوم الميعاد العالم الجواد صانع الجسد رازق العباد رافع السماء بلا عماد.
So the fourth and the last piece is a part of a famous poem Al-Burda written by Al-Busari that we will sing in the Moroccan style, and also we will sing the famous poem Al-Fiyashiyya in the repertory of As-Samâ.
أكرم بخلقي نبي زانه خلق بالحسن مشتمل بالبشر متسم كالزهر في طرفي والبدر في شرفي والبحر في كرمي والدهر في همامي كأنه وهو فرد في جلالاته في عسكري حين تلقاه وفي حشمي كأنما اللؤلؤ المكنون في صدفي من معدني منطق منه ومبتسم تعيا العقول كلالا عند رؤيتي كأنما نظرت لي الشمس من أمامي لطيب يعدل طلبا ضم أعظمه طوبى لمنتشق منه ومبتسم مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم يا ربي صل على محمد وعلى ساداتنا آله وصحبه الكرام أنا مني فياش أشعلي مني نقلق من رزقيلاش والخالق يرزقني اللهم صل على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام أنا عبد رب له قدرة يجود بها كل أمر عسير فإن كنت عبدا ضعيف القوة فربي على كل شيء قدير مني وشعليا وأنا عبد مملوك والأشياء مقضية ما في التحقيق شكوك ربي ناظر فيا وأنا نظري متروك فلا أرحم ولا أحشى عاش عليا مني خلق من رزقي لاش والخالق يرزقني اللهم صلي على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام يقول لي ما شاء كن فيكون يقول لي ما شاء كن فيكون ويبدئ سبحانه ويعيد ويبدئ سبحانه ويعيد ويحكم في خلقه ما يشاء ويحكم في خلقه ما يشاء ويفعل في ملكه ما يريد ويفعل في ملكه ما يريد في ظلمات الأرحام صورني من نطفة وخدالي ملأ نعم نعمة من كل صنفة وخلق لي ما وطعام ونعايم مختلفة وازدت من غير قماش غطاني وسترني فسبحان من عمنا فضله علينا له الحمد والشكر فيجود علينا بإحسانه ويرزقنا من سماء وأرض على أرض بساط الله وأنا في ملك الله والخلق عيال الله وأنا من خلق الله ولا أرزاق على الله ناكل من رزق الله ما نتخير من أش ناصبي يلحقني أنا ماني فياش أش عليا مني نقلق من رزقي لاش ولا خالق يرزقني اللهم صلي على المصطفى حبيبنا محمد عليه السلام كل فجودا غايب عني يا سيدي رضا وخشاني جودا والحسان اللي ظهر فيه لا مقصودا بلدي يبقى في الحضارة معاك زهيب وصولات لا غنى دايم ولا عبيد يشرق بسعودة في السماء قلوب النظرة بها من بين عبيده في المقام اللي كان يرضيك وابدل مشهودة فالذكر وتلذذ باللي نشا تنحل قيودة بلدي في الدنيا ماني ياهم في جمالي لا إله ويعول عليا لا يا معي غيري لا إله إلا الله لو يدق المنية لا إله إلا الله كل من هو عاشق لا إله إلا الله أو يريد أن يصلني لا إله إلا الله روح بالله يفارق لا إله إلا الله هنا أعد نظر مني لا إله إلا الله تبت إن كنت صادق لا إله إلا الله وارضى بالفعل مني لا إله إلا الله ليس يدرك وصالي لا إله إلا الله كل من فيها بقية لا إله إلا الله إنما نفشي سري لا إله إلا الله لله اختص بي لا إله إلا الله ترتجي أن تقرب وترى ما يسر ولا في الملك غيره لا إله إلا الله الله كان وبقي الله لا إله إلا الله ولا في الملك غيره لا إله إلا الله الله كان وباقي الله لا إله إلا الله ولا في الملك غيره لا إله إلا الله الله كان وباقي الله لا إله إلا الله ولا في الملك غيره لا إله إلا الله الله كان وباقي الله لا إله إلا الله ولا في الملك غيره لا إله إلا الله.
Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much. And finally, we want to thank Almunia Restaurant in Madrid to receive us in this nice place. Thank you.
It is us who have to thank Zainab for that amazing, transformative performance at lunchtime for many of us here in the United States. So thank you. That was absolutely wonderful. And I would like to invite Scott Kugle back and also Alain Weber, who's the producer of this festival. And we're happy to take any more questions. I know that Scott has been very busy answering questions, and I don't know, Scott, if there was anything that you thought it's particularly important to share with the rest. But I do have, I have a question myself, but I also have a question from a couple of members of the audience that have not been answered. But maybe before we get to questions, Zainab, is there anything that you would like to tell us about the selection, about you know, why you chose the pieces you did for us? Something sort of to get your insight on this, on your performance.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting us to this this festival. Really, I'm so happy to be part of this wonderful work. Second, I want to apologize for my very bad English. So I'm so bad in English for this reason. I will not be a good speaker. About pieces, the idea was to give to the audience more or less a big idea about what we sing as a Sufi repertory. So we sing in the Nuba or in the repertory of Andalusian music that is that we have in a diwans. So we sing poems, Sufi's poems in Raml al-Maya mode or Nuba. Later, if we want, we can explain more or less what means Nuba. But we sing in this repertory, we sing the Nuba. So we sing this kind of words, these lyrics, and also the Melhoun of Tetouan, that is a kind of musical style special in Tetouan, then part of Al-Hadaya also. So the idea was to take from every repertory a small piece.
Actually, one of the questions was about the modes, and I don't know whether you, Zainab, and Scott can briefly address the modes that you used.
The mode is like, the idea is something, it seemed to be a melody. So the melody of Raml al-Maya, for example, is from re, from the note of re to re, using si bemol decreasing for the specialists. Al-Hijaz al-Kabir is from re to re, using fa dièse, increasing and decreasing fa dièse, si bemol and mi bemol. So the mode is like a lot of melodies, but is the global mode.
Great. And by the way, your English.
I don't know if I explained good.
No, your English is perfect. Scott, I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of the modes.
It gets a little bit technical sometimes, but just for the general listeners, you know, you may be more familiar with the term maqam, for those of you who listen to Turkish music or Arabic music. A maqam is very similar to the idea of the mode that we're talking about. Or for those of you in Indian music, a raga. It's a similar idea of a set of ascending and descending notes that's not exactly a melody in terms of like Western music where everything is set, but it's a way of going up and coming down, from which you can construct melodies and variations of melodies. As we heard Zainab sing many variations of the same melody. And that's one of the beautiful things about Andalusian music. Within set notes, the performer has an extraordinary flexibility to innovate and fluctuate the melodies. So that's the idea of a mode.
One question, I think along those lines that was posed was, is there a link between the Sufi music of Andalusia and flamenco?
Some of modes also, because for example, the first piece was in maqam or mode or melody, Gharibat al-Hussein, but one piece of the Gharibat al-Hussein, or one kind of melodies that came from Gharibat al-Hussein, is Sika or al-Kurd. That is like 100% of the sensation is from flamenco.
Scott, anything to add there?
Just that, you know, when Zainab is talking about the names of particular notes on the oud or in the scale, like sika, you know, sika actually comes from a Persian word for the third place, siga. And so many of the terms in Arabic music actually come from older Persian words for hand places on the fret. Well, there's no frets on the oud, but on the board of the oud. And some of them are named after places. You might have heard Zainab say the word Hijaz, Hijaz al-Kabir. That's named after the place in Arabia, Hijaz, where Mecca and Medina are located. Other names of modes and notes are like Nehawand, which are places in Iran or Iraq. So there's a whole cultural legacy that comes with the names of the modes and the names of the notes. Just so that you can understand when Zainab is talking about a mode and its name, there's a whole background, a cultural background that comes with that, about this Arab and fusion.
Sorry, it is too hard to translate the context of these modes to the European or to the classical music. So sorry for that.
I was amazed when I was in Morocco studying Arabic and I first encountered Andalusian music. I bought a book of notated songs. So, you know, written down in Western notation, right? All the notes in the staff lining for those of you who are musicians trained in Europe or America. And it's amazing the effort that Moroccan musicians and other North African musicians have put into trying to notate the music. And yet, Zainab, you can tell us how much is lost, you know, of the subtlety of the art when you try to render it in Western dot staff notation.
Also, Zainab, just a question in terms of improvisation. How much improvisation is there in the songs that you perform?
It depends in which repertory exactly we are talking. For example, in the Andalusian music, we have only a small space to the improvisation, that is the mawal, but all the pieces in the Andalusian music are like very defined. We cannot do really good improvisation, but in Samâ, for example, the place or the space for improvisation is bigger in comparison with the Andalusian music. Only a small point, I want to thank all the messages that we are receiving in the chat, because I'm really so happy with reading this nice message.
Well, I'm sure we can go on. I just wanted to ask Alain if he, as the producer of the Fez Sufi festival, and who actually was instrumental in, who responsible for introducing Zainab to us. If there's anything that you would like to add.
No, I was so happy. You know, we had the Sahar last week, and then we have Zainab. Like for me, I found that you don't have much today, not too much young singer who completely dedicate themselves for music, because like Andalusian music, Persian music is very complicated. It takes much time to learn. You need to have a master. She has a very good one, Zainab, fortunately, but it's a lot of time, a lot of patience. And the beauty of this music and this poetry will not be survival if we don't have young artists like her learning and really spending so much time. And she's also, she did not tell you, but she's also working as a scientist at the same time. You will find a lot of people who, you know, like there's some connection I found that between music and medicine sometimes. That was like that in the old times and still today. It's a lot of, I found a lot of people involved in medicine. They also practice music in Andalusian music. And so Zainab, she's so much dedicated to that. And even today, if Andalusian music is still strong in the Maghreb in general, there's not that much young singer who have that knowledge. So I'm very thankful to her and to this beautiful tradition.
So on that note, Zainab, do you teach? I mean, do you teach other women? I mean, do you have classes? We know from last week that Sahar actually has classes. She teaches, I guess, her peers and younger students. I was wondering if that is happening in the case of you, and also, you know, how many other women have you inspired?
I would like to do it, but my problem that I'm not in Morocco. I'm doing my PhD in Spain in chemical engineering. So the time, I don't have really enough time to do it, but maybe when I finished my PhD, I'm thinking to do it maybe. I hope so.
Good.
Can I ask one question?
Of course.
Which reflects many of the questions that have been coming through the text. And it hasn't been asked before, and it's a question for Zainab. Many people asked about the position of women singers in this Andalusian tradition, and they asked specifically whether when this style of music is sung in Samâ, inside a Sufi zawiya or a Sufi setting, whether women also perform there, or is there a difference between the performers and the kind of music sung in a Sufi setting versus when this music is performed on stage or at more secular gatherings or celebrations, like a mehrajan or a festival?
Actually, really, before the presence of the woman in general in Andalusian music or in the Sufi music was, we can say, was zero. So, but now with the time, we can see more women actuating in a performance in festivals, but in the zawiya, some zawiyas like zawiya al-Hagat zawiya, they have a special place for women and special celebration only for women to sing, to practice the Sufi dhikr, but without the mixture with men. Actually, the things are changing. The Sufi festivals also invite more singers, more women. So I think that we are in the good way.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
And thank you very much, Dr. Scott, for your informations, for all what you say. It was really very, very interesting for me also.
You're very kind. Barakallah feekum.
Barakallah feekum.
Unfortunately, I think we have to wrap up. We're about almost half an hour over time, but clearly there is so much to talk about. But we will have to let Zainab get some rest so she can attend her classes. So I wanted to thank everyone for today's wonderful finale to our Sufi Music Festival. I would like to thank especially Zainab Afailal and her accompanying musicians for a mesmerizing performance. And of course, we're very grateful to Scott Kugle for his insight, and clearly there was hunger for much more, so we'll have to figure out a way to do that. If you missed any of our other performances, we urge you to listen to them and to Zainab's on the Freer and the Sackler YouTube channel. They are all the performances, all four performances are really exceptional examples of the richness, depth, and transformative nature of Sufi devotional music. And none of these performances would have been possible without the help of our incredible producer of the festival, Alain Weber. Thank you, Alain, for taking us on a most memorable musical journey for the last 4 weeks. I wish we could continue, but maybe we can repeat it sometime in the future. And again, I want to thank all our audiences who've joined us today and over the last 4 weeks. I hope you will come back to the Freer Sackler for more future and equally exciting programs. Thank you all very much.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
And stay safe.
Thank you.